having a 2 hour session today, and both the sessions will be handled by Nitin himself. The timings will be the same as yesterday and day before yesterday. So, ladies and gentlemen, presenting Nitin Prince John to you. Over to you, Nitin.
Thank you, ma'am, for the nice introduction. It's my immense pleasure to be here to deliver a talk on the topic on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. I hope that all of you can see my slides. So, this is the public notice regarding the usage of images in the upcoming slides, and it's all covered by the doctrine of fair use. So, let me start our session by a quote by Victor Hugo. There is nothing more powerful than the idea whose time has come. You may ask, what's the relevance of this quote? But here, the idea means artificial intelligence, and the time is right now. So it's the right time to study about artificial intelligence and its associated fields. As we all know that artificial intelligence is one of the hottest field, and there are a lot of opportunities in this field. So one of the leading researcher in this field, Professor Andrew Ng, calls AI as the new electricity. Why so? Because when electricity was invented, it transforms every aspect of our life, ranging from transportation, medicine, and so many other industries. Likewise, AI is going to replace every industries. But at the same time, AI is overhyped and underhyped. That means for some problems, we can solve really well. And for some other problems, we are just out of reach right now. So what exactly AI is? In layman terms, I can say that whenever we teach machines to think like humans, then that class of technologies can be referred to as AI. Or in another terms, we can say that it can be any technique that enables the computers to mimic the human behavior. There is no other technical definition than this. And there are a lot of examples for AI devices. One example is the Sophia robot. You know that Sophia robot is the first humanoid robot to receive the citizenship of any country. And it uses several technologies like natural language processing, computer vision. It uses facial recognition system to recognize the faces. She can imitate gestures, and also she can respond to certain queries. Likewise, so many features are incorporated in Sophia, and it is created by Hanson Robotics that is based in Hong Kong. Next example is the Amazon Echo, which is the personal assistant developed by the tech giant Amazon, and we can directly interact with the Amazon Echo. So in order to interact with that, we need to call it as Alexa, otherwise it won't respond. For example, I need to know the temperature. Then I need to give a query like this: Alexa, what's the temperature? Alexa will automatically reply to our answer. Likewise, if this device is connected to IoT, then we can control our lights, fans in our homes. So these are some of the examples of AI. Basically, the field of artificial intelligence has produced a number of cognitive technologies. Cognitive technologies means they all are brain-based technologies. And these are some of the fields under AI, and AI is the big umbrella. First area is the computer vision. We normally humans have the capability to see this 3D world and understand the meaning from that. But for a computer, it's not an easy task. So in computer vision, we are trying to make the computers to see. And all these algorithms and the programs that comes under this area called computer vision. Next is the machine learning area. Normally, AI problems can be solved using rules or data. When we solve AI problems using data, then we can say that it is based upon this machine learning technique. And if we use rules for solving AI problems, then we can't say that it's a machine learning. If we are using data, then we can call that technology as machine learning. Next area is the natural language processing. Natural language processing mainly deals with the processing of natural languages. One of the best example of natural language processing is the sentimental analysis. For example, after watching a movie, I wrote a review like this: the movie is not so bad. Actually, the word bad, it's a negative word. But when we think of the whole sentence, that is the movie is not so bad, After understanding the meaning of that sentence, we can find out that it's a positive review. So that field is referred to as sentimental analysis, and sentimental analysis comes under the area of natural language processing. Next area is the optimization. Optimization deals with picking up the best solution out of the several solutions, and it is an automated process. Next area is the planning and scheduling. Automated planning and scheduling deals with the scheduling of activities for the execution of unmanned aerial vehicles or robotic vehicles. Next area is the robotics. Robotics basically deals with the designing, building up of the robots, and also its maintenance. Next is the rule-based systems. Rule-based systems are systems that follow certain rules. One example of rule-based system is the expert system that the doctors may use to diagnose a disease based upon certain symptoms. And here, the AI problems are solved using rules. But in machine learning, AI problems are solved using data. Next area is the speech recognition system. As we all know that there are several examples for speech recognition system. One example is the Apple Siri, and next is the Google's voice assistant or Google's assistant. These all are examples of speech recognition system. Likewise, there are numerous areas that comes under this artificial intelligence. And in this today's session, we are going to focus on some of the fields like machine learning, and there is a field known as deep learning which comes under this machine learning, and also we are going to focus some areas of computer vision. I hope that you got a clear understanding on these areas. So what exactly machine learning is? In normal definition, we can say that it's the ability to learn without explicitly being programmed. And you may ask, what do you mean by explicit programming? Suppose I am giving you a task. For example, I have a list of unsorted numbers, and your task is to write a program so that it will take these unsorted numbers and the program needs to convert that into a sorted list of numbers. You know how to convert this unsorted list into a sorted list. If you know the function or if you know the idea, you can directly program that. And here we don't need any machine learning because you know the function, and if you know the function exactly well, you can write it with some programming language. And that technique is known as explicitly programming. But here in the definition of machine learning, it states that it's the ability to learn without explicitly being programmed. Here we are not programming anything. The main idea is that suppose I am giving a new task. You need to write a program that will take the handwritten digits as the input, and the program should output what the digit exactly is. It's a very tedious task because each person have their own handwriting style. The file may looks different for each person. So it's very tedious to write such a program, and we don't know how to map that handwritten image into a corresponding digit. So in that case, we are going to use the machine learning algorithm. So what happens is that here the machine learning algorithm will give the program for you. You don't need to write a program for that. When we look at this picture, we can see that machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence. This is the first thing that you need to know. Machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence. Next, these are some of the examples of handwritten digits. You may find out several images of 0, several images of 1, several images of 2. Likewise, so many digits. How many digits are there? We have 10 digits ranging from 0s to 9. But in order to write a program, we can't write that program. That's the fact. So there is no well-defined function that maps these images into outputs. So at that time, we are going to use the machine learning technology. Before going to the concept of machine learning, we need to know some recipes. If you know the recipes, then we can go with machine learning algorithms. First is the labeled data versus unlabeled data. What do you mean by labeled data? Earlier, I told you that when we solve AI problems using data, then it is called as machine learning. Here, the data is this one. Data can be classified as labeled and unlabeled data. Labeled data means here there is an image of 5, and there is a label associated with that image. That is the label equal to 5 itself. Here there is an image of 0, and the label is 0. Here there is an image of 4. We have the label 4. So these images can be treated as X. These images can be treated as X. But here the label is treated as Y. So label data means we have a pair of, we have XY pairs where X is the input and Y is the label. So our goal is that our program should take this image and the program should output what exactly the label of that image. That's the main idea. If you're going with unlabeled data, then we don't have any Y component. Y component missing means here we don't have any labels, but here we only have these images. With only images, whether we can train the machine learning algorithm? Yeah, of course, we can train the machine learning algorithm with unlabeled data. But what happens is that if you're giving so many images of 5, so many images of 0, it will, the machine does not know what exactly the image is, but it will tries to find out the patterns that is appearing in all 5s, and all the images of 5 will be clustered together. Likewise, all the images of 0 will be clustered together. All the false images will be clustered together, but the machine does not know what exactly the digit is. And that's the unlabeled data. And here the Y component is missing. Then this is the block diagram of machine learning algorithm. When we look onto this block diagram, we can find out that there is a training data. Training data means in the bracket I have specified that it's a label data. That means we have the X and the Y pair, XY pair, and we are giving that data to the machine learning algorithm. And there are numerous machine learning algorithms are available. And if you give this data to the machine learning algorithm, this machine learning algorithm will give an output. What is that output? This is a learned model, or we can say that this is the program. This is the program given by the machine learning algorithm. Actually, we don't know how to write a program. That's why we go for machine learning algorithm. So if you are going to going for machine learning algorithm will gives program as the output. Now, if you are getting this program, we can take up this program and we can give the new test data. Test data means our task is to give a handwritten image, and the program should tell what exactly the image is. So in this case, if we get the program from the machine learning, we can take out this program, and to this program we can give any handwritten digits, and automatically it will say what the image exactly is. This is the basic block diagram of machine learning, and we can call I have partitioned this block diagram into 2 pieces, and this is referred to as the training part, and this is referred to as the prediction part. In other words, we can say that this is the inference part. Again, for this machine learning algorithm, we need to have data. So how can we find data, or how we can organize the data? That's one of the biggest challenge. So for any algorithm, we need to collect the data set. Data set means data set contains images, or it can be any numerical values. Depends upon the type of problem that you are actually solving. So we need to collect so many data, and this original data is divided into 2 parts. One is the training data, and second is the testing data. We have the original data set, and we need to divide that into 2 pieces. That is the training data and the testing data. Again, from this training data, we are again going to split that into 2 pieces. That is the training data and also the validation data. But here we are maintaining the testing data as itself. So you may ask, what's the relevance of this validation data or training data or testing data? If you look at this machine learning algorithm is going to train with this training data. And during the training, we need to check whether it is going in a right manner or not. So it can be compared with our academic system. Basically, we are training our students. But in order to check whether the students are going in a right manner or not, we are conducting series tests. Based upon the marks of the series test, we can estimate that how much they will score in university exam. Here, validation data can be treated as the series test, and testing data can be treated as the university exam. Here, the training data is the training that we are actually giving from the perspective of academic system. So in the machine learning algorithm, we are going to train with the training data, and during the training, we are checking that whether the training is going in the right manner or not. And in order to check that, we are using the validation data. After that, we will get a model. This model is also known as the program. If the model is perfect, we can take out that model, and to that model, we can directly give the testing data. And when we give the test data, it will give the prediction for the corresponding problem. And this is the whole concept of this data set. This is a GIF diagram. Basically, when we look at this, we have the training data and we are giving the training data to the ML, that is the machine learning algorithm. And the machine learning algorithm will output a model for you. And this is the actual program. And if the program is perfect, we can give the new input data, that is the test data. And when we give the new test data, it will give the prediction. If the prediction is wrong, then what happened? We need to again retrain the machine learning algorithm. Because if the prediction is wrong, then we need to again retrain the machine learning algorithm. But if the prediction is correct, we can directly take out that model and we can deploy that in our applications. That's the whole concept behind this machine learning. This is just an intuition of machine learning. Again, these machine learning algorithms can be classified into three types. One is the supervised learning, next is the unsupervised learning, and third is the reinforcement learning. In some textbook, there is also another category known as semi-supervised learning, which is a mix of supervised and unsupervised. But basically, we need to understand that machine learning algorithms are basically classified into three types, that is supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement. Let's look on each of these machine learning algorithms. So first is the supervised learning. Supervised learning means when we train a machine learning algorithm with the labeled data set, then we can call it as supervised learning. You need to note that when we train the machine learning algorithm with the labeled data set, then we can call that type of machine learning as supervised machine learning algorithms. Again, this supervised machine learning algorithms can be classified into two types. One is the classification and next is the regression. Classification means in our earlier task, that is the handwritten digit recognition. In that case, we have 10 classes from 0 to 9. We don't have any classes other than these numbers. For email, we know that in our email system, we have a section known as spam and not spam. So there are two classes, spam versus not spam. If the mail is spam, it will go to the spam box. And it is a type of classification task. And another category that comes under this supervised learning is the regression task. Regression means, if you know, for example, consider the stock prediction. Stock prediction. In stock prediction, we know that the price that we are getting from the machine learning algorithm is a new value. It's not generating from a class. We are getting a new value. For example, we need to, again, another example is that we need to predict the price of the house. It will give a new value for you. It is not actually taken from a predefined class. And that type of problems comes under the area of regression. And both this classification and regression comes under the area of supervised learning. Next, we can go to the unsupervised learning algorithms. In unsupervised learning algorithm, we are training our machine learning algorithm with the unlabeled dataset. Unlabeled dataset means here the Y component is missing. We have only the X component. So what is the purpose of this unlabeled data? Let's look at another example. You have several documents, and one document contains text and some other documents contain so many images, but the system does not know whether the document contains text or the documents contains image. But after seeing so many documents, it will automatically find out the patterns that is hidden inside the document, and it will cluster all the documents that contains images and cluster all the documents that contains the text. So we can say that it will cluster out the things, but it does not know what exactly it is. And that comes under this unsupervised machine learning algorithm. And the third category is the reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is basically used in autonomous cars and in also building of games. In 2016, a company called DeepMind developed an algorithm called AlphaGo, which is able to beat the world's toughest board game, which is the game called Go, and it is able to beat that. And that's the example of reinforcement learning, or that's the beauty of this reinforcement learning. So in reinforcement learning, we have an agent and an environment. This agent is continuously interacting with the environment. If the agent takes a wrong decision, then it will get the penalty. If it takes a right decision, then it will get rewards. Based upon the previous experience, it tries to avoid the penalty or tries to avoid the wrong decisions. It will, in the future terms, it will take only the best solution out of the several ones. And that's the concept behind this reinforcement learning. And these all are the main three classifications of machine learning. So now I'm going to introduce one area called computer vision. The basic idea is that I need to solve computer vision problems using machine learning. That's why I'm going to introduce this area to this section. So what do you mean by computer vision? We normally humans have the capability to see this world. But in computer vision, we are trying to replicate our human vision. Or in other words, we can say that we are going to make the computers to see. Or in other definition, we can say that we are making the computers to gain high-level understanding from images or videos. So from where we get the images and videos? Of course, from cameras. We have cameras everywhere. In car system, we have the cameras. In surveillance system, we have the cameras. In drones, we have the cameras. Without cameras, drones will be useless. Again, in shops, we have the cameras. In mobile phones, we have the cameras. We have cameras everywhere. And with these cameras, we are generating a lot of images and videos. And this set of images and videos can be used for our training purpose in machine learning algorithms. So before going to the concept of computer vision, we need to know how exactly an image looks like. For a human, it's a very easy task. For a computer, it's not an easy task. So the basic component of an image is the pixel, or pixel is the basic or the smallest unit of an image. Now, this is the image of Lena, and I am going to zoom this nose part here. And when we zoom that, we can find out that there are some small square boxes. And these small square boxes can be treated as the pixel. Normally in computer system, these pixels are represented by numbers ranging from 0 to 255. Here, the value of 0 means it's black and 255 means white. All the values that ranges from 1 to 254 belongs to different shades of gray. So that's the idea behind the pixel. So we have 254 shades of gray, and in order to represent 256 values, participants, can you unmute your mic?
Yes.
Okay.
Explain.
Okay, again, we have these pixels, and what happened is that we have 256 values for this pixel. In order to represent these 256 values, we need to have 8 bits. 8 bits means 1 byte. This is a grayscale image, and basically grayscale image has only one channel. One channel means we have only one image. That's the concept behind this image. And in the case of color image, again, one thing that we need to know is that this color is coming closer to white. That's why it gets the color 134. If you're going to the dark shades, if you're going to this position, we can find out that it comes the value becomes 56. That means it is going towards 0. Going towards 0. That means it is going towards black. And this denotes the intensity levels of these pixels. Again, in the case of color image, we have 3 channels. We have 3 channels means we have the red channel, green channel, and blue channel. For each channel, the pixel comprises of 24 pixels. Here the concept is that if you are taking this blue channel, we have the pixels, and each value is represented with 8 bits. For blue channel, each value is represented with 8 bits. For green channel, it is represented with 8 bits, and for our channel, it is represented with 8 bits. Totally, we are combining all 3 channels to get the color image. So we can say that a pixel comprises of 8 plus 8 plus 8, that is 24 bits. That's the concept behind this. And here in blue channel, 0 means it's a pure black, and 255 means it's blue. In green, if you have the 0 value, it means black, and 255 means it's a green. And in red, similar to that, 0 means it's black, and 255 means it's pure red. And if you are going to combine all 3 channels, we will get the original color image. In the grayscale image, we have only 1 channel, and in black and white images also we have only 1 channel. But in the color channel, we have but in the color image we have the 3 channels. So computer vision is a big field, and that contains so many algorithms. And when we look at this picture, we can see that AI is a big field, and inside that we have an area called machine learning, and there is also another field called as deep learning that I will cover in the later sessions, not later session, in the later slides. And here there is an area called computer vision, And part of the computer vision problems are overlapping with this AI, ML, and DL. And there are also some other problems in computer vision that has nothing to do with AI. Without AI, we can solve some computer vision problems. And in today's session, I am going to concentrate more on these computer vision and machine learning overlapping problems. So this is the overall picture of the computer vision area, and you need to know this. And in computer vision, we are making the computers to see. So why I choose computer vision? Normally, vision begins with eyes, but it truly takes place in our visual cortex of our brain. 30% of our brain is devoted to visual processing when compared to 8% for touch and 3% for hearing. So computer vision holds a very prominent field. So what we are going to do is that let's have a look at this picture for a few seconds. Let's have a look at this picture for a few seconds. Participants, please note this picture. I'll give you 10 seconds. This shows you why computer vision is so hard. Okay, for humans, it is enough to see this picture, right? Can you able to answer these questions? You can type that in the chat box if you need any interactivity in this session. Normally, humans have better capability than computers in the visual processing. We are not able to handle these cases. Then how can we train a computer? Okay, let's go back to this picture. If you go back to this picture, we can find out that there are some mirrors. Okay, in these mirrors, there are some person, but we can't count this as a person because it's the mirror image. And we have one person, second person, third person, fourth person, fifth person, sixth person, and 7%. Totally 7 persons are there. Okay, these are the images obtained from the mirror, so we can't count that. Again, what's the funny thing that is happening? Here, a person is standing on a weighing scale, and Barack Obama putting his leg on the weighing scale, and when he look at the screen, it is overweight. But he does not know whether Barack Obama is standing on the weighing machine or not. That's a funny thing that is happening from this picture. But for a computer system, they can't find out this funny thing because that's a very difficult task. But for humans, it's a very easy task. But the state of the current art is able to handle, can detect this person as Barack Obama. Okay, it's good. And it can count the total number of persons in this image. But the funny thing, with the current state of the art algorithms, we are not able to handle this question. That is why this is a funny picture. That's why I'm saying that computer vision is a very tedious process. Again, when it comes to the human brain, we have learned a lot of things in the past 5 years when compared to the last 5,000 years. But still, we don't know how exactly our brain works. That's the beauty of our brain, and it's a great gift given by our God. So let's look at this picture. You are able to understand that these all images belongs to cat. But even though, despite changes in deformation, you are still able to handle all these images as cat. But for a computer system, we need to handle this case. But our brain has the property to detect all these images. Despite changes in illumination, if you are going to look at this picture, we are still able to find out that there is a cat present in this image. And all these images contains cat. We need to handle this situation in computer vision problem. Despite changes in occlusion, we are able to identify that. But the computer system needs to find out this cat inside all these images. So when we program our problem, we need to understand all these stuffs. Then, despite the changes in size, pose, angle, then next case, despite the changes in background clutter. Here the cat fur's color is similar to the soil color. Here the cat's fur color is similar to the snow color. We are able to find out that, but the computer vision algorithms, for computer vision algorithms, it will be a very tedious task. Despite the changes in class variation, there may be different variations of cat. We need to handle all these cases, and these are some of the problems. So that's why I am saying that computer vision is really a hard thing. And for better understanding of these areas, I will give you a suggestion. There is a paper known as paper. There is a white paper called "The Past, Present, and the Future of Computer Vision." It covers all the history of this computer vision. I think that it takes around 20 minutes read, and totally 8 pages to 10 pages, something like that. And you can Google it out and get the paper from, and it's the paper from Trax company. Anyway, you can note that. Again, I have a question. You can put the answer in the chat box. What's the background color? What's the background color of the letter B and I when compared to the letter A and S? What's the background color of B and I when compared to the color of A and S? Some of them are giving the answers like yellow, B and I orange, A and S magenta. Okay, that's good. Actually, all these letters have same color. Our system is not our human eyes are not able to understand that. If you're going to zoom this, now I am putting that in the PPT slide presentation. That's why I'm not putting that in the screen share. If you're zooming this picture, you can find out that the color of B, I, and AS are same. This is the mistake that is happened in our eyes. But for a computer, it will say that all these letters have the same color. In that case, the computer will win that match when compared to humans. And there are so many other cases that creates problem for our eyes. It's just an illusion. It is referred to as unconscious bias. It is referred to as unconscious. Sometimes we judge the people based upon the appearance. That's the same thing. Sometimes they are good, even though the appearance is bad. Anyway, next we are going to focus at this area. So we know that the AI is the bigger field, and within that we have the machine learning field, and we have a computer vision field, and this is the area where we have some problems that is overlapping with the machine learning part. So we can take one of the one of the problem in computer vision, that is the image classification problem. Here, we need to give an image to the system, and the system needs to tell what exactly the image is. That's the task. Image classification. Given an image, it needs to classify what the image exactly is. Here we have 3 objects, that is cat, dog, and others. So in the case of machine learning algorithm, we need to have several pipelines. The first thing that we need to do is that we need to collect the data set. That is the first thing. We are going to collect all the data of cat, all images of dogs, and all other images other than cat and dog. Now we have the data set. If we have the data set, the next step is the pre-processing. We need to convert, normally all the images are of different sizes. So we need to resize all these, resize or rotate or warp based upon your requirement. You need to pre-process the original image into a standard size image. Here the image is converted to a standard. Here I rotated this image, and it is reduced to a size of 256 cross 256. What do you mean by 256 cross 256? That means here we have 256 pixels in the horizontal direction and 256 pixels in the vertical direction. Totally, how many pixels we have? 256 into 256, but it's a color image. Okay, so the total number of pixels will be 256 into 256 for one channel. But in the case of color, we have 3 channels. So the total number of pixels will be 256 into 256 into 3. That's the total number of pixels available in this step. And the second step, we need to convert that into a feature. What do you mean by feature? It's the important thing that we need to understand. But in the case of deep learning, this feature vector is an automatic process. Again, we can go to the further details of this. We need to get the image and convert that image into a feature vector. So what exactly a feature is? These are some red dots. You can treat these red dots as the image of cat. This is the image of cat. This is an image of cat. This is an image of cat. So all the cat images are together. All the cat images are together. But actually, image is a n-dimensional data. But for simplicity, we can say that we can now consider it as a 2-dimensional data. Okay, so data points in same class. Please note this point. Data points in the same class. Same class means here the class is cat. Data points in the same class should be clustered together. Yeah, right. All the points are clustered together. It comes within a loop. Second point. Data points belonging to different classes should be far away. These blue dots belongs to dog. This is an image of dog. This is an image of dog. All the dog images comes inside one category, and here all the cat images comes inside another category. And these two clusters are far away from each other. And this is the property of a good feature. Okay, this is the property of a good feature. Suppose I am giving a task to check whether the person in this image is running or not. Whether it's running, you can chat. You can give that in the chat box. Whether this person is running or not, you can give that in the chat box. Whether the person is running or not. Yeah, of course, true. The person is running. This is sufficient information for us. But can you say who is running? Can you say who is running? A person is running. That's true. A man is running. I am asking you about that specific personality. Can you get that information from this? He's an athlete. Surely he's an athlete. I'm asking you about the person's name. I know it's a person. No, we can't find out the person name from this. But I have told you to check whether the person is running or not. And for that task, this information is sufficient. So keep the essential information that is relevant to your task. Actually, this edge detected image is obtained from this original image. And in our task, we need to only detect the person is running or not. And here there is an additional information like the color of the dress, and we can see that Usain Bolt is running, but we don't need that. Okay, so we are going to throw away some unrelevant information and just picking up only the relevant information for your problem task, for your problem. And this is one of the property of good feature. Keep essential information and throw away the unessential informations. In computer vision problem, normally we have a process known as feature engineering. We have a process called as feature engineering. Actually, this feature engineering is a human crafted thing, and there are different types of feature extractors like hard features. Hard features are basically used for detecting whether the image contains a face or not. And again, in order to check whether the image contains person or not, we need to use another feature known as Hawk features. And for different type of problems, we have different type of features. Hawk feature means histogram of gradients. Histogram of gradients are basically used for detecting whether the image contains person or not. Hawk features are basically used for detecting whether the image contains face or not. So for different problems, we have different features. So the problem here is that based upon our task, we need to choose the right feature descriptor. It's a challenging task. We have so many feature extractors, and after this, we need to pick which one is the best for our purpose. And you can check, you can additionally check these names in the Google. Surf is one of the commonly used feature extractors, and it is a patented algorithm like Surf, Sift, Hog, Brief, Orb, Sift. These are some of the feature descriptors, and these all are human crafted feature engineering algorithms. And now, the step 3. Step 1 means we need to do some pre-processing. Then that image is converted to feature vector using some feature extractors. And after, if you get the feature extractor, we can give this extracted features to a learning algorithm. Learning algorithm means it's the machine learning algorithm. Okay. And one of the popular machine learning algorithm is the support vector mission. That is the SVM, support vector mission. So with these extracted features, we are giving that extracted features to the learning algorithm. After seeing a lot of data, the learning algorithm is able to detect whether the given image is cat or dog or other animals. That's the beauty of the machine learning algorithm. Now I am going to this area called learning algorithm. I can take the most commonly used machine learning algorithm known as support vector mission. For simplicity, we have two classes of breadpoints and classes of blue points. Whether we can, my question is that whether we can separate these two classes or whether it satisfies the property of feature vectors, whether it satisfies the property of good features. I'm asking you that question, whether this image satisfies the property of a good features. You can give that answer in the chat box. Of course, true. It satisfies the property of a good features because all the red points are clustered together, all the blue points are clustered together, and both these classes are far away from each other. What the support vector mission do is that it will find out a decision boundary. Decision boundary means if you are separating these two classes by a line, and this line is found out by the support vector mission. For example, during the testing time, if the new point belongs to this side, if the new point is belonging to this side, look at the cursor position. If the new point is belonging to this side, we can say that it belongs to the red category. If the point belongs to this side, we can say that it belongs to blue category. This line is the separation. So support vector mission find out the best line that separates these two classes. You may think it's an easy one. Yeah, it's an easy one because we can separate these two clusters with a simple line. But all the cases are not similar. But when it comes to the case of this structure, can we separate with a single line? Can we separate with a single line? We are not able to separate this with a single line. Here the problem arises. Here we are going to again use the support vector mission. It's actually a two-dimensional data. That means we have the x value and we have the y value. So with the support vector mission, we have a technique known as kernel trick. With kernel trick, I am going to convert this two-dimensional data into a three-dimensional data. That means I am giving a new dimension to this data points. Say Z. Now I can convert like this. This is a two-dimensional figure and this is a three-dimensional figure. Here we are adding a Z dimension. Can we separate this with a plane? Can we separate this with a plane? Of course, we can separate this with a plane. Okay, if you are going to separate it with a plane, what happens is that like this, we can separate it with a plane and we can convert this into 2D. When we convert that into 2D, from the top view, you can see like this. You can see like this, like a circle. You can see like a circle. Okay, from the top view, you can see this circle. This is the beauty of support vector mission. Support vector mission automatically, with the kernel trick, it can convert all the lower dimensions to a higher dimension and it can separate these data points. And the main idea behind the support vector mission is to find out the best fit. That is, we can fit that data points using a hyperplane. In the case of 3-dimension, in the case of 1 dimension, we can separate. In the case of 2 dimension, we can separate it with a line, and depends upon. We can normally separate it with a hyperplane structure. This is the complete pipeline of the image classification. Firstly, we have that input image, and the first step is we have to do some pre-processing or the original image, and we will get the pre-processed image. And this pre-processed image is given to some feature extraction algorithm. It is a human crafted engineering, and we can use any HAR, depends upon the problem, we can use any feature extractors like HAR, HOG, SIFT or so. And this image is converted to a pattern like this, and this is the output of the feature extraction algorithm. And this data is fed to the machine learning algorithm. And after seeing a lot of data, the machine learning algorithm is able to detect whether the image contains cat or not. Okay, that's the whole pipeline of this problem. And now we are going into another area known as deep learning. In the last 10 years, AI and ML have shown a tremendous progress. So much of the progress is based on a subfield called deep learning. And what do you mean by deep learning? Deep learning it's not a new role. Actually, it starts in 1950s. So many algorithms are already developed, already began to develop from 1950s. And now we have the supporting, too many supporting algorithms we now have. That's why deep learning comes into the picture. Deep learning is basically a subfield of machine learning, which is completely based on artificial neural network. Okay, it's a subfield of machine learning, which is completely based on artificial neural network. And these artificial neural network are trying to mimic the human behavior. So from this figure, we can understand the relationship between AI, ML, and DL. Okay, AI is the big umbrella, and inside that we have the machine learning algorithms. And inside that machine learning algorithm, we have another category called deep learning. And deep learning is a type of machine learning, but it is based upon artificial neural network. That's the main difference. And we have several type of algorithms like convolution neural nets, which is basically used for computer vision problems. Then recurrent neural networks, RNN, which is used for some time series data. And we have the simple algorithms like ANN, that's the artificial neural network. We have three categories of networks that comes inside this deep learning. Now, deep learning is the state of the art. Normally, most of the problems are solved using deep learning, and most of the companies are investing a lot of money in this area. So why deep learning? The main problem in machine learning is that we need to have a process known as feature engineering. And that feature engineering is completely relied on human technique. If we make a mistake, then the whole algorithm goes wrong. With the deep learning, this feature extraction becomes automatic. Okay, with deep learning, this feature extraction process becomes automatic. But in machine learning, we need to do that feature engineering. So what are the features? For example, in order to detect whether the image contains face or not, then in that case, the low-level features are the simple edges. Low-level features means it's the simple edges. Mid-level features means it's the eyes, nose, lips part. These are the mid-level features. High-level features means it's more complex objects like the complete picture of a face. And here I'm written like this. Low-level features are lines and edges. Mid-level features are eyes and nose and ears. And high-level features are the facial structures. So let's identify the key features from this image. From this image, we know that the key features are nose, eyes, and mouth. From this image, the key features are wheels, license plate, and headlights. And from this image, the key features are doors, windows, steps. We can easily identify that. Now, deep learning algorithm has the beauty to find out these features from this data. So what do you mean by deep neural network? Actually, deep neural network consists of a hierarchy of layers. Okay, here the layers means here there is a layer, again there is a layer, again there is a layer. There are some layers, and finally we have the output layer. These layers will automatically find out the low-level features. That's the beauty of deep learning. These earlier layers will find out the low-level features, and upcoming layers will find out the mid-level features, and the later layers will find out the objects itself. And likewise, deep learning is completely built upon this artificial neural network. So with this session, I'm going to give a high-level introduction on all these topics, and in the afternoon session, I will go through the details of the deep learning. Now I'm going to the area of this deep learning part where computer vision and deep learning is overlapping. And in this computer vision and deep learning overlapping part, we can treat this as the neural network. Now consider that this as a black box, this neural network as a black box. But in the machine learning, keep in mind that we have the original data, we need to pre-process, then we need to do feature extraction. After that feature extraction, we have the learning algorithm. But instead of that steps, we have only a single neural network. We are directly giving the data to the neural network, and neural network will automatically find out the features for you. You don't need to handcraft any features. That's the brilliance. Okay, so based upon neural network will automatically find out that whether the image belongs to the cat category, dog category, or others. I'm going to add some more points. Features are selected from large set. In order to train this algorithm, we need to have several set of images of cat. But in machine learning, we need to have a limited set of image cat. But in the case of deep learning, we need to have a lots of data for training purpose. In this neural network, we can see some knobs. These knobs can be treated as weights, and this needs to be okay. This contain weights, but these knobs can be treated as hyperparameters that we need to tune. And for the right tuning of these knobs, the program will be able to identify, or the program will be able to correctly classify the image. So the during the training part, what happens is that these knobs will be turned into the correct position. This is a high-level intuition. It's only the high-level intuition, but in the underlying process, we need to know about the backpropagation algorithm, and backpropagation algorithm is the core of the deep learning algorithms. This is the timeline of development. AI comes into the picture in 1950s, and after some time, there is a time known as AI winter. At that time, now progress are carried out in this field, and in 1980s, again a new field known as machine learning comes into the picture, and in 2010, a subfield of machine learning came into the existence. And from 2010 onwards, this is the most hypest area. Okay. So why deep learning performs so well? There are three reasons for DL to perform well. What all are they? One is the big data. Now we have a lot of data. In the Google itself, if you need to search for the cat image, just search that in the Google images. You can find out a large amount of data, cat images from the Google, and you can directly download that and you can train with your machine learning algorithm. Now we have a large amount of data. That is the big data. That's one reason. We have the computation power. We have the computation. In earlier days, we only have the CPUs. CPUs are good at with doing many type of tasks, but in deep learning, we need to perform matrix multiplication. We need to perform matrix multiplication. But CPU is good at that, but it is not specialized for these matrix multiplication tasks. But with the existence of GPU that is developed by NVIDIA, basically GPUs are used for gaming purpose. But after the emergence of deep learning, they heavily invest on GPUs for training these deep learning algorithms. And with this GPU, we can train our models in a faster time. That's one of the reasons. And now we have the tensor processing units known as TPU from Google. This is the second factor. And third factor is the algorithmic progress. That means we have so many algorithms and so many libraries for performing deep learning projects. And these three factors are the main thing for deep learning performs. Then, what's the difference between machine learning and deep learning? In machine learning, we need to have the original image and we need to perform some feature extraction. This is human-made feature extraction engineering process. And after the extracted features, we can give that into a learning algorithm. And this learning algorithm will train based upon these images, and it can classify whether the image contains that object or not. But in the case of deep learning, we are removing this feature extraction process. This handcrafted feature extraction process is removed. But in deep learning, this becomes automated. This becomes automated. That means feature extraction plus classification, or feature extraction plus learning becomes into a one module. Okay, we can directly give the data, automatically it will find out the features and do the rest to you. And that's the main difference between ML and DL. Second difference, if you have large amount of data, if the data is large, what happens is that in the case of machine learning, it will increase. After a certain time, the accuracy begins to remain same. Okay, this is the accuracy, y-axis is the accuracy, this is the amount of data in the x-axis. So after some time, the accuracy remains constant for machine learning, whatever be the amount of data. But in the case of deep learning, if you give large amount of data, then the accuracy will surely increase. That's the second difference. Third difference is, not the third difference, main application areas of deep learning algorithm are speech recognition system. You can find out that because majority of the companies are building up good software based upon these areas. Speech recognition is one of the application areas of DL. Next, computer vision area is the another area. Natural language is another area. And you can find your passion on these areas and work upon these. So these are the big three areas that comes under this deep learning. These are the superstar researchers in this field. Geoffrey Hinton, he is known as the godfather of deep learning, and he is the founder of this backpropagation algorithm, and now he is working in Google. And Yannick Cohn, he is the founding father of convolution neural net, which is a neural network used in this computer vision area. And now he is working in the Facebook. Andrew Ng, he is the co-founder of Coursera, and also he is conducting so many courses like deeplearning.ai. And next is the Yoshua Bengio. He's a university professor working in Montreal. And finally, Jürgen, he's a researcher in industries AI labs. These are the big players in this field, and they are investing a lot of money in this field. Facebook, we know that when we upload an image in the Facebook, it will automatically tag. That is based upon the machine learning algorithm. Not machine learning, now they are using deep learning algorithm. Facebook is using deep learning algorithm. Microsoft, they have their algorithm technologies. Google have the backup of these TensorFlow algorithms. Facebook have the PyTorch. And likewise, IBM is using these technologies. NVIDIA is basically building up these GPU systems. Beidou is a core research team focusing on building up advanced algorithms for the applications. And these are some of the startups. And there are some startups given in this blue shade. And these are the startups acquired by big companies. DeepMind is acquired by Google. And DeepMind is responsible for building up the algorithm known as AlphaGo, which was able to beat the world champion of Go, that is Lee Sedol. And next, DL is sweeping across all industries like internet services, medicine area, media and entertainment, security. That's why Andrew Ng defines AI as the new electricity, because it is going to replace every aspect of our life. It ranging from security devices or autonomous machines, likewise. So there is a paper known as Deep Learning Explained by NVIDIA. You can refer to that. I'm not going to click here to open that page. You can find out that page. You can find out the paper in the Google search. And I'm summarizing all these high-level intuition. Artificial intelligence means it can be any technique that enables the computers to mimic the human behavior. Machine learning is a subfield, and it's the ability to learn without explicitly being programmed. Deep learning is a subfield of machine learning that is finding out the patterns from data, and it is completely based on artificial neural network. So one thing that I want to say is that Python is the language of AI. I always support Python. Because they have a lot of libraries based upon Python. These are some of the libraries used for building up the deep learning algorithms. TensorFlow is backed up by Google, and you can do whatever you want in machine learning or deep learning area. Keras is a high-level API, and now TensorFlow contains this Keras API. OpenCV is a library which is specifically for the computer vision applications, but now they incorporated all the deep learning algorithms into the library. Then Caffe, PyTorch is another deep learning library which is backed up by Facebook. Scikit-learn is the next library which is based upon Python, and it is specifically used for the machine learning applications, not deep learning. Scikit-learn is basically used for the machine learning application, and you can find out a large amount of algorithms in this Scikit-learn library. And my choice is that I'm always going with this TensorFlow, Keras, and Scikit-learn and OpenCV. this is my choice. And if you're interested in PyTorch, you can, of course, for the research purpose, you can carry out with this PyTorch library. And this is all about up to this session. And the rest of the session will be carried out in the afternoon session. Okay. Go, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You must go ahead.
Hello. Thank you, Nitin. If anybody has any queries, you can post it in the chat, or you can unmute your microphone and ask Nitin. We will only be happy to answer.
I think there are some queries in the chat windows.
Why accuracy remains same at some point? Because based upon the previous experience, when we trained machine learning algorithms like SVM or regression task, we have found out that whatever the amount of data that we are giving, the accuracy remains up to say 75% or 78%. That's the final accuracy that we are obtaining in machine learning. But in some cases, for some problems, I can say that machine learning is good. If you know exactly about the feature extraction process, go for machine learning. If you know exactly the feature extraction process, if you know the specific understanding of this machine learning algorithm, go for machine learning. You can get good accuracy in that. But if you don't know the feature extraction process, my suggestion is that go for deep learning. But the second difference is that if you're going to use machine learning, you always use a less amount of data. That's the main thing. But if you're using so many large amount of data, then you can go with the deep learning algorithm. And this graph is basically based upon some research experience, and these are obtained from valid authors. Do you have any doubts? If you have any doubts, you can directly query that.
Okay. I guess your question is answered. Okay. He has said thank you. So I guess his question is being answered. That's it for the forenoon session. The first part of the session, titled An Exploration to the World of AI, ML, and DL, is over now. Now we will meet at 1:30 sharp, 1:30 p.m. for the second part of the session. Okay, there is one more question. Nitin, can you hear me? There is one more question.
Okay, which algorithm gives better accuracy?
Gives better accuracy for?
Okay, now we have the VGG phase models, and that comes under the deep learning algorithms. And with these deep learning algorithms, you will get good accuracy for the face recognition challenges. You don't need to use hard classifiers, and there are some algorithms that are shipped by the OpenCV library itself. You can directly use that, because in the last semester, I have done a project for the facial emotion detection system. And that detection system is basically used for the emotion-based music player, and I got a good accuracy, and I'm using that deep learning VGG phase model for that. Don't go with the Viola-Jones algorithm, because if you're going with the Viola-Jones algorithm, you may not get the accuracy as per the state-of-the-art algorithms. My suggestion is that go with the deep learning for the face recognition task. I hope that I answered the query.
Okay, I hope. Okay. So is there any other question? I don't know, Nitin, if you have noticed, there is one comment in the chat. Excellent session, sir, with great smile. Those who know Nitin, we all know that that is the one thing that strikes you whenever you meet Nitin. He has got a great smile. So I think it's time to wind up the first part of the session. So if there are no more questions, we'll wind up the first part. Please do join us back by 1:15 p.m. So that's it. Thank you, Nitin.
Okay, ma'am. We can see you in the afternoon session.
Okay, Nitin. So, dear participants, the attendance link for the forenoon session of day 3 is posted in the chat. Kindly fill the form and mark your attendance for the forenoon session. Thank you. Thank you all.